walk you through my life and kind of explain to you how God has made such an amazing, He's just done some pretty incredible things in my life. So when I was younger, I played several sports. I competed in soccer and gymnastics, and that was my life. I didn't do anything else, and I didn't care. I wanted to do that, and that's all I wanted to do. If you've ever heard of the stories of when athletes are out on a field and they have a cardiac arrest or they die while they're playing a sport, the cause of that is usually a heart condition called hypertrophic cardiomyopathy, or HCM. And when I was 10 years old, I was diagnosed with that heart condition. I had to quit all of the sports I participated in, and when I was 10 years old, it was like everything was taken away from me. And I didn't know what else to do because that is all I had ever known. I didn't feel sick, I didn't have any symptoms, and I didn't really understand why God would do something like that to me. I grew up in church, I believed in God. I always went to church every day of my life, almost. My parents were leaders at the church, and so I grew up there, and it did not make sense to me why someone who was a good person could get something like that, a disease where everything is taken away from them. I didn't know that God was right next to me, but He was. So as I got older, I started showing a few symptoms. I would get winded, I would be tired, sometimes dizzy, and I kind of just had to rely on God. I couldn't walk up a flight of stairs without feeling lightheaded. And so someone told me the verse Isaiah 40:31, and it helped me through these times where I was really kind of lost. It says, "But those who hope in the Lord will renew their strength. They will soar on wings like eagles. They will run and not grow weary. They will walk and not be faint." And it kind of was ironic because every time I would walk, I would be faint. So I heard the verse and I was like, okay, if I hope in the Lord, then I'm not going to be weary. I'm not going to be faint. So when I was 11 years old, I accepted Christ as my Lord and Savior. And I no longer saw my heart condition as a burden, but now I thought of it as a blessing. In 2011, I became very sick. I think I was a sophomore in high school, and I struggled with breathing, dizziness. I would fall out, I would pass out in public places, at home, and I would end up with huge knots on my head, and it was a really scary time for me. So I wasn't able to go to school. I stayed at home, I laid in my bed, and really I didn't leave my bedroom. And to be 16 years old and to be isolated from anything that was outside of your house, it was really, really hard for me. I had support and I had friends, but most of the time they were involved in sports, they were involved in school activities, and they didn't really have time to come and see me. So during that year, I believe it was in November, I was being evaluated for a heart transplant. And that was the only treatment that I could get. That was the only solution. The only way that I would feel better is if I got a heart transplant. Well, the doctors told me at that time I wasn't sick enough. I had to get worse in order to get better. And I mean, who wants to hear, "Oh, I'm sorry, I know you're feeling bad, but in order for you to get better, you actually have to go downhill. You actually have to get worse." And so we went to the Mayo Clinic that November. God led us there because all I could do was pray. I was like, okay, if I can't get this, then what am I going to do? So I go to the Mayo Clinic, and I'm there, and they're telling me that I have another medical condition. That this medical condition messes with the balance between your heart and your lungs. And because of this, there was medicine that could be given, but because of my other heart condition, I couldn't take the medicine. So I was left with nothing. I mean, they were like, okay, but there is one thing. We might be able to get you to get better if you do these things. And so I said, I will do anything. And so 6 weeks later, I was able to return to school. I went back to school full time, and I got to finish out my junior year, sophomore year. And then I was able to go to school, and I was able to be with all my friends and enjoy the summer, and it was great. I was back to who I was supposed to be. I was back to how everything was supposed to be in the beginning. And as I got to that place and I got better and I returned to all of my normal activities, I continued my walk with God because I knew He got me there. I knew that God put those doctors in that hospital in my life so that I could get better and I could go back to doing what was supposed to be happening in my life. But instead of walking with God like I thought I was, it was more like I was stuck. I was standing still and I wasn't really walking at all. So I continued like that for about a year or so. In February of last year, 2013, I woke up one morning and I'm a very happy person all the time. And I woke up this morning and I was furious. I was mad. I was sad. I can't even explain how mad I was. We got to the doctor's office. It's in Atlanta. And we got there, and I was sitting in the waiting room, and I could feel the blood boiling inside of me. I was infuriated. And so the doctor calls my name, and we walk back into the testing room, and my mom's with me, and we're sitting there, and he's doing the test on me, and he looks at me, and he says, "When did you start showing obstruction?" And I was like, "What?" And basically what obstruction is when the thickness inside of your heart starts to block blood flow. And I looked at him and I said, "I don't show obstruction. That's why I've been evaluated for a heart transplant. There's nothing else that they can do for me. I don't show obstruction. That's my sister." And he said, "Well, actually, McKinley, you're showing it right now." And as I heard those words, all of the anger that had built up inside me, it vanished. I became filled with joy. And for someone to be filled with joy, and I started crying. I started crying in the doctor's office, and the guy who was doing my testing was looking at me like I was insane. He was like, "You do realize this is a bad thing?" And I said, "No, it's not." I said, "There's nothing else that they can do for me at this point in time. And for you to tell me that my heart is obstructing, that gives me another option. That gives me a chance to feel better." And he said, "Well, I need to get the doctor and take a second look, but as of now, you're showing obstruction." And so I said, "Well, bring him in." And so he brought him in, and the doctor looked at it and said, "Yeah, you're showing obstruction." And so my mom immediately got on the phone with the Mayo Clinic that I had just been to not too long ago. And she got on the phone with them, and immediately they said, "All right, well, we'll get her up here, and we'll get her an appointment, and we'll get some testing done, and we'll see if we can reproduce the results, and if we can, then we'll do her surgery." So about 2 weeks before I left for Minnesota, I started having nightmares, which is perfectly normal for someone who is going up across the United States to get testing done to see if she's going to have open heart surgery. So I started having nightmares about the surgeon, nightmares about me dying during surgery. And I was scared. I was really, really scared. But then one night, I had a dream, and it wasn't a nightmare anymore. Instead, I was having these dreams where everything was white. Everything was silhouettes. Everything was glowing. And it was the most beautiful thing I had ever seen in my life. I was amazed that I could sit there and I could sleep at night and I could see heaven. I knew what was coming, and I was not. At first, it scared me. Those dreams, I was dreaming that I was going to go to heaven, and they scared me at first. But then, as the dreams went on, as the nights went on, I realized that it's not scary. God was preparing me. He was saying, "McKinley, it's your time." And so what I did, as soon as I realized that it was not a scary thing, it was a calming thing, it was a peaceful thing, I sat my parents down and I said, "I need to tell the people that I need to tell people the people that mean the most to me. I need to tell people that I love them. And so I called, I made right what I had done wrong to people, and I forgave people who had wronged me. And a few days later, I said to my friends, I called them all, and I said, guys, I need to talk with you guys. And they were like, okay, what's up? And I said, let's all go to dinner tonight. We were going to a concert afterwards, but I said, I want to talk to you guys, and I really just want to spend some time before I go. And they said, okay. And they didn't realize what I was saying is I wanted to spend time with them before I go, before I leave, because I wasn't coming back. And so I sat down with all my friends, and we were eating, and it came to this point, we were all laughing and enjoying the night, and it came to this point where God had laid this on me to tell them. It was now that I was supposed to tell them. And so I said, guys, I need to tell you something. And then I was crying, and they were like, Kenny, what is the matter? I'm like, come on, slow down. And I said, I need to tell you that I am not coming back. And they said, McKinley, what are you talking about? I said, I've been having these dreams where I'm going to go to heaven, guys. And it's beautiful, it's amazing. And they said, McKinley, no, you're not. And I said, guys, I'm not kidding. It's my time to go. And so as I sat there and I cried with my best friends that I have been friends with since I was 4 years old, I felt like I had absolutely no strength. I felt like I was going to break down right there and not be able to stand up. But instead of me breaking down, instead of me falling to my knees, God held me. And He made me strong so I could do this. Well, on April 29th, I had the first day of testing at the Mayo Clinic. I walked through the doors, and we did a day of testing, and they didn't find anything. There was nothing that they found that would say I was a candidate for surgery. And so I'm sitting at the hotel that night, and I'm thinking to myself, I know I did not have all these dreams, and we did not come all the way to Minnesota for me not to have this surgery. And so the next day, they do a few more tests, and the doctor comes in, and they're able to reproduce the results. They're able to get my heart to obstruct. And he says, you can have the surgery. And so I go in, and I'm doing a little pre-op with the nurse, and I get to meet my surgeon. And that night, I'm sitting in my hotel, and I'm just waiting for the night to pass. At 5 a.m. on May 1st, I walked back through the Mayo Clinic doors. At 7 o'clock, they took me back to the OR. Right before they took me back to the OR, my grandparents had came, and I said goodbye to my grandparents, and I said my last goodbyes to my parents. That was the hardest thing I've ever had to do, is say goodbye to the people who raised me. I think it was 1 o'clock, they took me off a bypass, and at 3:55, I woke back up, and I saw my parents' face. It was the happiest moment ever. After thinking you had done what you needed to on this earth, and then waking back up and seeing your parents' face, the first thought in my mind is, you're not done with me, are you, God? And so I started going on, and I got back to my house May 6th. 5 days later, after having open heart surgery, I was back at my house, and I thought I was starting to heal. Well, I actually wasn't. Instead, my extremities, my hands, my feet, my face, and my abdomen started to swell. And I'm not talking like you break your foot and it gets a little swollen. I gained 30 pounds in less than 5 days. And we didn't know what was going on. We went to the doctors over and over, and we were like, is this normal for her to be, like, is this okay that she's going through this? And they were like, I mean, we don't really know why this is happening, but we'll give you some ideas and you can try them at home, and if it works, then you'll be good. So I tried a number of things. I tried anything that would make me feel better. And I cannot, still to this day, I cannot explain the pain that I was in. I had just had open heart surgery a week before. And I had just made it through this after thinking I was going to die. I just made it through that. And yet a week later, I'm in excruciating pain. I feel like I'm dying. And there's nothing anyone can do. They don't know what's going on. And so I go to the doctor one last time. My mom was like, okay, we're going to take you back. And at this point, I was giving up. I knew there was nothing that anyone could do to save me. I gave up. And so as I went into the doctor's office with my mom and my dad, and I was there, and they were like, okay, we're going to check one more thing. We're going to do a blood test on you. And so I said, okay. And they did this blood test, and the results would take a little longer. So we had to go on. So I'm sitting at home, and I'm sitting on my couch at home, and I remember bawling my eyes out because I was in so much pain. It felt like the insides of me were being crushed. It felt like my ribcage was going to break. And I was sitting there on the couch and I was bawling. And my mom came out and she was frantic almost, and she was like, McKinley, we need to go now. You need to pack a bag and we need to go now. And I said, no. I said, I'm not going anywhere. And she said, McKinley, you don't have an option. I said, Mom, I'm not going anywhere. I said, I'm tired, and I'm sick of this, and I'm angry, and I'm sad, and I'm hurting, and I'm not going. And she said, McKinley, let me tell you one thing, and then you can decide whether or not you're going to go. And I said, fine, tell me. And she said, your BNP level, which is an enzyme that your body secretes when your heart is failing. Your BNP level is at 4,971. And I was like, whoop-de-doo, like, okay, cool. And she said, McKinley, I want you to Google it. And you tell me if we're going to go to the hospital or not. So I'm sitting there, and I'm mad because, seriously, I'm the sick one, and you're going to make me Google it. Okay, so I'm Googling it, and I type in BNP level 4,971. And it comes up and it said, anything over 900 is severe heart failure. And I was sitting there, and my number's almost 5 times that. And I'm sitting there, and I'm like, you've got to be kidding. I've gone through so much, and now my heart. I just had surgery to fix my heart, and now it's going to fail. So as I'm sitting there dying on my couch, my mom says, we need to go. And so I said, fine. I packed a bag, and we went to the Atlanta ER as fast as we could. We got there, and I was waiting in the room, and they weighed me, and they said, you're 27.5 pounds over what you normally are. And I couldn't understand what was going on. And so we get checked into a room, and the doctors come in, and they say, McKinley, this is what's going on. Your body, because your heart is failing, you have fluid surrounding your organs. And the fluid surrounding your organs is cutting them off. And your organs are starting to, they weren't working. So basically they were failing. Because my heart was failing. So my organs were failing. So I was dying. And as they were standing there and they were telling me this, I was like, okay, well, what can you do? I get that I'm dying, but how are you going to fix me? And they said, we can give you a medicine that will release the fluid from your body, and hopefully that will restart your organs, which will in return help your heart. And so I said, okay. gave me the medicine. So that night they pumped me full of this medicine, and the next day I lost 10 pounds. And the next day I lost 15 pounds. So in a few days, I was back to normal, and I was able to start healing again. I was able to go back to school and finish out my junior year. I was able to go and enjoy all of my summer activities. And it was the biggest blessing of my life. It was a miracle. And so then I go into my senior year, and I'm finishing out my senior year, and I struggled. I have a heart condition, I'm still going to struggle. I had some wires that were coming loose in my chest, and so I had to go and get them removed. But I got them removed on October 1st, and I am doing better. I'm getting better. I'm healing. And it's amazing what God has done in my life. I struggle every day, but I know that no matter what life throws at me, the guy who has been standing there with me the whole time, he never left me. He was always next to me, and he carried me when I was too weak to walk. And he held my hand when I felt like I was alone. And I just want you guys to know that in the low points of your life, it doesn't matter if it's health, it doesn't matter if it's you're dealing with your friends, or you're dealing with spouse issues, or you're dealing with work, or you're mentally ill, it doesn't matter, because God is going to take care of you. He's going to take care of all of the issues that you go through, because He loves us and He cares for us, and if we let Him in, then He will provide for us.
All this pain, I wonder if I'll ever find my way. I wonder if my life could really change at all. All this earth, could all that is lost ever be found? Could a